Florida. The name alone conjures up images of sun-drenched beaches, swaying palm trees, and endless blue skies. But beyond the postcard-perfect scenery, there's another side to the Sunshine State, one that's obsessed with numbers, especially when it comes to tourism. This is the land of alligators, world-famous theme parks, and headlines that seem to break records every year. Florida's tourism industry is a powerhouse, and the state loves to shout about it. From the Everglades to Orlando, from Miami's nightlife to the quiet Gulf Coast, the message is clear: everyone wants to visit Florida. Each year, Florida boasts jaw-dropping visitor numbers, tens of millions, sometimes even claiming over 100 million tourists. These figures are splashed across news headlines, tourism brochures, and government reports. It's a staggering claim, one that puts Florida at the very top of America's most visited destinations. But these stats aren't just for bragging rights. They fuel spending sprees, drive up real estate prices, and become the backbone of political promises. When politicians talk about jobs and growth, they point to these numbers as proof that Florida is booming. Visit Florida, the state's official tourism agency, spends millions of dollars every year to keep those numbers climbing. Their mission? To make sure the world sees Florida as the ultimate vacation destination, and to keep the flow of visitors and their dollars pouring in. But what if these numbers aren't quite what they seem? What if, behind the glossy ads and impressive statistics, there's a bit of smoke and mirrors at play? Could it be that Florida's visitor count is more illusion than reality? In truth, Florida's tourism numbers are less about hard science and more about marketing magic. A funhouse mirror version of the truth, where the reflection is always bigger, brighter, and just a little bit distorted. Tonight, we'll pull back the curtain and reveal how a simple layover at a Florida airport, a quick drive across the state line, or even just owning a second home can turn you into a tourist, sometimes more than once in a single year. The math behind these numbers is surprisingly fuzzy. We'll dig into the curious gap between the millions of reported tourists and the actual number of hotel beds available. How do theme parks report attendance? Why do the numbers sometimes seem to defy logic? We'll explore the creative accounting that keeps Florida's tourism stats sky high. This isn't about denying Florida's popularity. Millions truly do flock here every year. But it's worth asking, what story are these big, beautiful numbers really telling? And who benefits when the line between fact and fiction gets a little blurry? Tonight, we'll find out. So how does Florida get such massive numbers? It starts with a very loose definition of tourist. Anyone crossing the state line, business travelers, truck drivers, even someone visiting a hospital for the day, gets counted. The state doesn't distinguish between a family at Disney and a trucker grabbing gas. The result? Inflated stats that make Florida's tourism look even bigger than it is. It's not about accuracy, it's about a headline-worthy number. Let's dive into the details of how Florida's visitor numbers are counted, and why the process can be a bit misleading. Florida's airports aren't just busy, they're some of the largest international gateways in the United States, connecting travelers from all over the world. Every year, millions of people pass through Miami, Orlando, Tampa, and Fort Lauderdale airports, making them bustling crossroads for both domestic and international flights. But here's the catch. A significant portion of these visitors never actually set foot outside the airport. Many are simply connecting to another flight, using Florida as a layover point. Yet, in the official statistics, each of these passengers is often counted as a tourist, even if their only experience of Florida is the inside of an airport terminal. The same goes for cruise passengers. Cruise ships dock at Florida's ports, and even if travelers only disembark for a few hours in places like Key West, just enough time to snap a photo or buy a souvenir, they're still tallied as full-fledged tourists in the state's records. Then there are the snowbirds, retirees who migrate south to escape the winter chill. These seasonal residents might cross the state line multiple times a year, flying home for holidays or family events and then returning to Florida. Each trip, whether by car or plane, is counted as a separate tourist visit, inflating the numbers even more. The system that tracks these arrivals doesn't ask how long someone stays, or why they're here. It doesn't matter if you're in Florida for a 2-week vacation, a quick business meeting, or just passing through on your way somewhere else. What matters is the sheer volume, the head count. So a single person could be counted multiple times in a year, once for a layover, again for a cruise stop, and yet again for a seasonal visit. Each instance is logged as a new tourist, regardless of the actual experience or duration. This methodology is intentionally broad, designed to capture as many entries as possible. It's less about painting an accurate picture of who's truly vacationing in Florida, and more about maximizing the numbers for economic and promotional purposes. Think of it like a turnstile at an amusement park. Every time someone passes through, the counter clicks, regardless of whether they stay for hours or just a few minutes. The focus is on quantity, not quality. And that's the essence of Florida's visitor count illusion, a system built to count every passerby, creating impressive statistics that may not reflect the true story of tourism in the Sunshine State. Florida's math gets even more creative by counting visits, not people. If you visit 3 times in a year, you're counted 3 times. In-state travelers, like a Miami resident vacationing in Orlando, are also counted as tourists, sometimes multiple times. This repeat counting turns loyal fans into what looks like a flood of new arrivals. Instead of saying 10 million people visited 2.5 times, Florida just says 25 million visitors. It's a subtle shift that makes the crowd seem bigger and the state more popular. The reality? The same people are being counted again and again. Nowhere is the counting more magical than at Florida's theme parks. Multi-day tickets and park hopper passes mean one family can be counted as dozens of attendances. Visit Magic Kingdom in the morning and Epcot in the afternoon. That's 2 attendances for one person in a single day. The numbers reflect daily entries, not unique visitors. When these stats are rolled into state totals, they inflate the perception of how many people are actually in town. 50 million attendances might mean only 15 million actual people. It's statistical wizardry that makes the crowds look even bigger. Here's where the numbers get really strange. Visitor nights. If you divide reported visitor nights by available hotel rooms, you sometimes get impossible occupancy rates. Why? Because many visitors never need a bed, day trippers, layover passengers, and more. Survey-based estimates and broad definitions further inflate the totals. The state claims people stay with friends in rentals or second homes, but even then, the math often doesn't add up. The gap between reported demand and actual supply exposes the weakness of the system. These numbers are more marketing than measurement. Florida's tourism isn't a year-round tidal wave. It's more like a shifting tide with dramatic highs and surprising lows depending on the season. In the summer, beaches are packed with sun-seekers, families, and students on break, while in the winter, many of those same stretches of sand are nearly deserted, save for a few locals and the occasional snowbird. This ebb and flow is a defining feature of the Sunshine State's tourism industry. But when you look at annual visitor numbers, those peaks and valleys get averaged out, creating the illusion that Florida is always bustling with tourists. The reality is that there are months when hotel lobbies echo with emptiness, and theme parks operate at a fraction of their capacity. Yet, the yearly totals paint a picture of non-stop excitement and crowds. Most of Florida's visitors are domestic travelers, Americans from other states rather than international tourists. These domestic guests are easier to track, especially since many make several short trips throughout the year, sometimes being counted more than once. This repeat visitation can inflate the numbers, making the state's tourism seem even more impressive. All these factors, creative definitions of what counts as a visit, the potential for double counting, the unique way theme parks tally their guests, and the smoothing out of seasonal fluctuations, combine to craft a compelling narrative. It's the legend of Florida, the unstoppable tourism juggernaut, a place where the fun never stops and the crowds never thin, at least according to the statistics. But the real story is more nuanced. Florida is undeniably a popular destination, but its reputation is amplified by clever use of statistics and marketing. The numbers are impressive, but they don't always reflect the true, on-the-ground experience. The crowds are real, especially during peak seasons, but they aren't as constant or as massive as the annual figures might suggest. There are plenty of quiet moments and hidden gems waiting to be discovered. Seeing through the illusion, understanding the rhythms, the numbers, and the stories behind them, is the first step to truly appreciating the Sunshine State's unique and ever-changing tourism tale.